no. Perhaps if I combine my magic with the gruel that they call food, I could blast my way through this wall. No, that would kill me in the process. I know. I shall sing my way through by charming the gods, but then the archers would kill me. What if I... No. Oh, visitors. Welcome. Have you come here to witness the greatest escape of all time? Another tale? Really? When I am on the brink of a breakthrough, I need to save my magic for my daring escape. What? Use my veils to the past to escape? Are you trying to destroy us all? Do you not understand that magiks needed to just view the past, and now you are suggesting that I simply just walk through? Now I cannot concentrate on my escape, as now I need to educate my audience on basics of the veil. I shall use the bone of my past style tenant to knock open the veil so we can educate ourselves from the all-knowing Ramble Shamble.
Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Ramble Shamble. Today I am once again joined by my favorite co-host and my favorite friend in the world, Mackie. Hello Mackie.
Make me feel all warm and cuddly inside. Hello listeners, he's also my greatest friend. He's actually like, I treat him more as a brother. he's basically my family.
Yeah, I must admit, Mackie's probably my favorite friend purely by chance. Like you're also my first friend ever. I met you 26 years ago. 26 or 27 years ago because you were my neighbor. Like, we've been friends since we were 1 year old. Or I was 1 year old and you were 2.
Just shows how fate brought us together.
You're my best friend, but, not because I chose you or anything. It's just because it just turned out that way.
Hey, to bring some clarity for our audiences at home, I was a loner when I was a little kid. I was like kicking a puddle. I still remember the first day we met. And I was like kicking a puddle. I saw this worm wiggling, and you and Not a Nerd came up to me, being the little guys you are, and says, "Hey, you want to come play games with us?" And I'm like, "Okay." And then only realizing,
and then we just started kicking the puddle with you. Probably, we probably just started jumping at this or something.
Then that's true friendship. To still be friends for such a long time is a testament of how, like, we're just basically family at this point. Like, my parents treat you and your brother's family, and your parents have told me, like, you're also family. This is something that's such a beautiful thing, that when things happen, it happens.
Yeah. But let's get away from that. This is a serious episode. This is not a friendship episode.
I got my glasses on.
We're big boys.
Yeah. Go facial hair.
With lab coats and goggles as well. Okay. But I'm saying that specifically because today we are going to be talking about something scientific. Now, Mackie is a very scientific person, being an actual qualified engineer with a lot of experience under his belt, whereas I'm just, I'm an archaeologist. We do scientific things because archaeology is actually a grab bag full of other disciplines that there's like enough pieces of other disciplines inside of archaeology that archaeology can be its own thing, but it's a bit of a Frankenstein of a discipline.
But it's definitely a science. If I have to think of anything, like if I had to categorize it as something, I definitely think it's more science than history, because you guys are exploring the unknown like a scientist would, and running theories, simulations, kind of predict what it was like back then, because scientists
Yeah.
are often viewed as future seers. So you guys are like the seers of the unknown, of what we can learn from the past, where scientists are trying to discover what can grow the society. So in both spectrums, in some ways you can say we're complete opposites, but we're like two sides of a coin, which I think is quite a nice way to put it.
Yeah, well, like there are actual simulations that archaeologists will do as well. Like there's stochastic simulations and things with GIS, global information systems that we work with. And we also work with not particle accelerators, but like we'll take a sample of rock from like a drill core from a cave deep inside the earth, and then we'll take it to a massive machine that will analyze little slices of that drill core to analyze the composition of the chemicals and stuff like that for pollen remains over the eons and stuff like that. So it can get really, really scientific as well. But there are actually like two directions you can go in archaeology. There's the more scientific kind, and then the more historic, cultural kind, where you do like ethnographic research of people that are still super rustic and traditional nowadays. But yeah, that's got more to do with anthropology than archaeology. But a lot of the times inside of universities, like the one where we went to, the department of archaeology and anthropology will actually be the same department. Yeah. But anyway, today is the more scientific thing. So this is more in your wheelhouse. Today, we are going to be talking about time, space, and the multiverse.
Ooh.
So yeah, this is a super fascinating topic for me as well. I just love anything to do with science and physics. Even though I can't really get a full grasp of the maths or anything like that. One of the big benefits of having like an archaeology degree is that you're able to follow along with very scientific and very physics-based conversations, even when they get super into detail, just because of the nature of our discipline, as well as very like anthropology and psychological kind of speak. But so yeah, I just love hearing about these kinds of deep things. But I think the best way to introduce this topic is for us to briefly go over the different theories of the multiverse. And I think you can start us off there, being the pencil pusher between the two of us.
Ouch. Pencil pusher. I'm
the
pretty
desk
sure you just
jockey.
assaulted every scientist like desk jockey. Oh, she's all these stabs to my fragile ego. Oh, I have to
Okay,
build
dude.
myself
Okay,
up.
well, anybody can call me an armchair historian as well, because I'm also a desk jockey. So yeah.
I just picture you with like one of those smoking pipes with the bubbles coming out. Bloop, 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 bloop.
Yeah. I say that as a term of endearment because I'm in the same group.
No, I get it. Okay, so to first off, people might think that, hey, since I'm an engineer, I'm an expert scientist. I am not an expert scientist. As you probably would have watched in a episode of Big Bang, Sheldon Cooper likes to mock Cooper Wolowitz, basically all the time, even though he's a master in engineering. I'm not a master. I hope to get to my master's at some stage. But yes, I might be. I definitely have a better understanding of the mathematics and science behind it, and I won't bore you guys because I could be Dr. Phil and bore you guys to death. But my understanding, which I have done some research to kind of refresh my memories of things. So there's a lot of theories around there. There's obviously the simultaneous multiverse. There's also the inflation multiverse. There's also the brain multiverse. There's all these different multiverses, and it's quite an interesting topic to talk about because it's a huge divide between scientists who believe that there is the possibility of a multiverse, and on the other spectrum, there's scientists who completely want to burn it down to the ground. They think it's proper people going to the club, smoking some special type of weed, and now saying that this is scientific proof. Because if you guys have listened to a previous episode, a theory is correct until proven wrong. But now, how do you prove the multiverse is not just wrong if you can't prove it? And it's such an interesting thing to talk about, because so scientists say that's the exception. But then obviously other scientists who also know the code of it's right until proven wrong, completely say it's not scientifically possible to prove, so it can't be right. It has to be wrong.
Okay, but can you prove it wrong? That there's only one universe?
No. That's the thing. That's the question behind is that you can't prove it wrong either. So that's why
I believe you can.
Oh, that you can prove it wrong. That there is no multiverse.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Let's see what you have to say then. I'll give my pen and paper.
I can prove wrong that there's only one universe and no multiverse. So if someone says to me as a statement of fact, there is only one universe, and because of that there is no multiverse, then I can say that's not true, because there is this phenomenon in quantum physics called the law of superpositioning.
Yes.
Which means that at any one instant, a particle can be in two places at once. And then there's no further proof needed, because that in itself is a disproof of the theory that there is only one universe.
Oh, but that's what I'm saying, is that even that theory or that proof is not technically correct, because yes, on the quantum level you can kind of agree there. So the science behind that is that an electron is in many states. So you have to go down to the atoms. The favorite place that Jotun loves to go to chat about quite constantly is the atom, and the electrons that go around the atom. And a lot of people think that it's just if you go back to science, back at high school level, it's just that little negative circle that goes around the proton and neutrons of the atom. And the thing is that electron has many forms while in there, and that's what makes people ponder the idea that the reason why it's in so many different states, even though it's like that, it could possibly hold the key to breaking into the multiverse, or proving the existence. And one scientific thing which I recommend anyone listening to this to look it up is the double sleeve experiment. I'm not sure, Jotun, are you familiar about this experiment?
Yeah, that's the proof for the law of superpositioning.
Yes,
that
so
phenomenon.
What makes that thing so, for the people at home that probably don't want to look this up, it's something that's really mind boggles every scientist who actually look at it. I looked it up again, and I'm just as equally like saying, what the F just happened? So basically, it's two sleeves on a piece of I'm not sure what the material is, but it's a piece of paper, to say two sleeves very close to each other, and then on the back screen is a back screen for the whatever form of energy to shine upon. So it causes an interference pattern. So basically the two changes into like a bunch of about 8 shadows on this piece of paper, but obviously fading away. So think of it like it's like going lighter away from the main source. So any form of energy, whether it be light, sound, any form, and including light is made up of energy, but also made up of protons. So not protons, photon, that's the right word. So they pass a photon through this double sleeve, where it would only go through one. It's a single photon that's passing through the screen. So theoretically it should only pass through one of the sleeves, but it still makes the same interference pattern if the photon was passing through both sleeves. So scientists said, okay, now they just try put a camera to observe the photon, which sleeve it goes through, so we can see which one happens. And when they put the camera there, the photon goes through, but there's no interference pattern. So now something's changed. Now that we are observing the photon go through one of the sleeves, the interference pattern's not there. So what they ended up doing was they put 2 crystals so that they would split the photon to go through whichever sleeve it decided to go to, but also go through the camera, because they thought that maybe the camera was interfering with the photon. Again, there is no interference. So basically what they proved is that under observation, something changes the photon and there's no interference pattern. So, but when unobserved, so this is where it goes to Schrodinger's cat hypothesis, which is, I'm sure Jotun will love to talk about that. It's basically when unobserved, both states can happen, but when observed, a true state happens. So when
No, it's not that both states can happen. It's that both states do happen.
Yeah, basically that. So apology, that is the correct way of saying it. So both states are at the same time occurring simultaneously, and that's where the simultaneous multiverse comes into question. Because if both states are happening at the same time, that's where Schrodinger's cat comes into the question. Is the cat both alive and dead, or but since it's unobserved, it's technically both? And that's where a lot of people can't grasp the mind, because a lot of the time we humans, we want to make things easier for us to understand. We want to quantify it. So putting something, having like, so what the principle basically states is that if you have your cell phone and you put it down on that there, it's there. It's present. It's at that spot. But in the atomic level, it could be changed in so many different states, and that's where it gets really complex.
Yeah. So to put it in layman's term for anybody that didn't fully grasp what Mackie was saying there about the devil's sleeve experiment, imagine it as one particle of light, which we call a photon in science, being shot in a direction. And that's like a line on a piece of paper. And to fully see what was going on, what scientists did is they set up the experiment so that that line, that single path, could actually end in two different outcomes depending on what they were trying to measure. And so there's the possibility of it going on either the left-hand side of a fork or the right-hand side of the fork. So basically, if you imagine a Y on a piece of paper, and it goes from the single line towards the other side of that Y, and it'll end on either the top or the bottom hand of that Y. What they found was that if they don't observe the process of this light's movement along that path, then it would happen that the photon would be measured at both ends of the Y instead of just one. Whereas if they did observe it, it would only go along one of those two, or to only end on one of those two ends of the Y fork, which is really fascinating. What that tells us is that because when unobserved, those particles literally have two different states in two different positions in time and space. Whereas as soon as we observe it in some kind of way, then it is only in one. And I don't know, that just tells me there's something very unique about consciousness and being able to actually observe things inside this universe.
But that is
either way, that proves that a multiverse must exist, but we just don't know exactly how.
Well, that's why I agree with what you say there, that a multiverse should exist by that principle, because it does explain it.
Yeah.
However, I will say it is something that obviously needs a bit more thorough understanding of it, because it's a weird way of thinking, because basically, like Jotun said, two sides of the fork. And yes, observed causes that something. But it does still kind of make it a little bit difficult, because that means that everything, does that necessarily create the multiverse? Because obviously unobserved. So it's something to really grasp your mind around, because when observed, maybe it's just the interference by the camera that you use. There's a number of particular reasons. So saying, oh no, because of that, surely it must be true. It's like, no, guys. There's a lot of external factors in a perfectly isolated system that we wish to achieve, then 100% correct. But there's so many little factors that always come into influence that we have to account for. So as much as we want
Yeah.
to say, surely this proves it, it just says, no, it's pointing us to the direction of multiversal things. So saying it does
Yeah.
exist. No, it's pointing us in the direction, hey, there's something more that we were blind before about. And it's something that I definitely want to explore more about.
Yeah. So there is a bit of confusion also with just the specific word observe, because
Mm,
another way that you can phrase that is that it's in two different states at once before it is measured.
mm,
Which, I
100%.
mean, observed and measured are totally different meanings if you actually think about it. Measured means that any kind of instrument can measure it in time or space, but observed means that specifically a conscious being has like grasped what that measurement is. But
Mm.
anyway, that's getting a bit more philosophical. Let's quickly give a brief of the different theories of the multiverse. And granted, that is taking it as a fact that the multiverse exists. But screw it, that's what this topic is all about. So, yeah, with the different theories of the multiverse, all of them posit that we need extra dimensions from those which we are able to experience. And not dimensions as like the stupid pop culture way of thinking of a dimension as like, oh, this man came from another dimension. No, we're not talking about that yet. We're talking about like mathematical scientific dimensions, which are three of space, length, breadth, and or length, height, width, and depth, and then one of time. Those are the four dimensions that we can experience, and the three dimensions of space we ourselves can manipulate. We can't really manipulate time that much. We can feel time can feel like it's going faster or slower, but we can't change our direction in time. Um, and all the other multiverse or all the multiverse theories suggest that there are other dimensions that we are currently not able to experience. And the only reason why we're even aware of them, if we take as a fact that the multiverse exists, is because that's what the mathematics tells us. But Mackie, can you tell us about a couple of those theories,
So, like you mentioned
like
before, so
string
there's a lot.
theory?
Yeah, so there's a lot of the different kinds. So superstition. I might have butchered that word. Sorry, guys. Basically means that
Superposition.
superposition. That's it.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yes, superposition.
yeah.
So now that is something where it's kind of very close to our own world. So very little changes. So instead of me wearing a blue shirt, I'm wearing a black shirt, and instead of Jotun combing his hair one way, it's not combed at all. It's very minute changes, and it lives directly with us. So basically, reverting back to our first episode of Ramble Shamble about superpowers, Master of Divergence, Jotun mentioned. Yes, I do remember all that stuff. It's basically as he
Yeah,
discussed it before, where
the best
he
power.
he would see the slightest he sees the slightest change, and then he decides to abandon his family and friends in that current world and jump over to the next world of his very identical
For
life
better
until that
family
one
and
point.
friends. Don't forget that.
They should watch to judge it on there. But basically that's superposition. Then there is inflation. So thinking of the universes as balloons. Basically the balloons inflate continuously because our universes continues to expand, and it all kind of expands from the Big Bang. So one central point, and our universes don't necessarily kind of go along the same path. It's not kind of influenced directly by each other. They just existed at the same central point, and then they progressed differently at that central point. So complete divergent paths from there going forward. So there'll be a universe where there's no life, but there's still the same stars and everything. There might be a universe where there's planets but no stars. So it's basically, it comes from the central Big Bang, boom, and then from there, divergent paths completely. Then there's brain. Jeez, these ones are really complicated to explain in the simpler terms. There's brain and there is string theory. I'm not sure, Jotun, what's your understanding of these two? Because maybe I can work my mind around how to possibly explain it in a little bit simpler ways.
I'm not familiar of the term. I'm not familiar of the term brain theory. Is that the bosonic string theory? How many dimensions is in brain theory?
So brain theory is let me look it up. You go string theory. Let me try explain it. And so it's, don't think it's what you just said. So let's start with string theory. String theory is a little bit easier to understand.
Okay, yes. Okay, so string theory suggests, well, first of all, mathematically speaking, string theory requires 9 dimensions of space and time in order for the mathematics to work. So that means, yeah, I think it's 9. Yes. So that means that there are 3 dimensions of space that we know and love. There's one of time, but then there are also, I think, 6 extra.
Oh, apologies. Brains are part of string theory. Sorry, I was getting confused. So yeah, brains are part
and
of
that's
string theories. It's the names, yeah.
Okay.
See, people of the audience, we're still learning here as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that does make sense to me. So basically, string theory says that there are extra dimensions of space-time, but we're not able to observe the extra dimensions of space-time because they are on a quantum level compared to us. And the reason, and those, they're like really weird, like they twist and they coil on themselves, that dimension, and it like loops in different ways and things like that. But either way, it suggests that there are extra dimensions of space-time that we are not able to observe. And I see here now.
But like superposition, they are occurring at the same time as ours. It's just that it's more drastic changes than superposition from my version of understanding. Again, guys, if you guys want an expert on this, you definitely need to go to like a person who studies string theory as their main job, and then see if you can understand it from their point of views.
Yeah, so sorry, I was wrong. It's 10 dimensions of space-time. So it's 3 of space, 1 of time, the ones we know and love, and then 6 extra dimensions of space, which like coil and are compactified on each other, or on themselves rather.
Yeah, and we can only view 3 of those dimensions as a general rule of thumb. So audience, as soon as we get to 4th dimension, that's why we're unable to. So these things are occurring around us, like superposition is occurring apparently around us, but because of its high dimension, we are unable to observe or measure it. So it kind of goes back to the Stronger-Katz theory of that fact that we cannot observe it. It doesn't happen. And there's a lot of theories where there's a lot of scientific occurrences that kind of point to the direction that our universe might even collide with a certain different universe. And it's something that it's a really interesting world. Like it's so vast, so much room to kind of slash your mind's virtual sword to kind of uncover the mysteries of the universe or multiverse, if there is such a thing.
Yeah. Okay, so the competing theory is that of M theory, which is 11-dimensional, as opposed to the 10-dimensional string theory. And this is where brains tend to come into the picture. Brain, everyone, as in spelled like membrane, and not like the thinky bit of flesh inside of your skull.
I'm pretty sure everyone's thinking that way.
BRANE. Yeah, BRNAE. Think in terms of a 3D square. So it's like a square on. It's a piece of paper that's a square. That would be your brain, because that would be 3 dimensions of time. I mean of space, and 1 dimension of time. And so something. Now that's just a 2D shape that you're imagining right now. Okay. But something like M theory, which says that there are multiple brains inside of it, would be like having multiple of the 4 dimensions of space-time to form a cube. I think that's like the simplest way in which you could describe the multiverse in a picture way, not in a very wordy way. Yeah, but that's also probably the simplest way that it could actually exist if you think about it, because all of these are suggesting that there are a shit ton of universes inside of the multiverse. So there are many, many, many brains inside of the multiverse. So I think logically speaking, saying that there would be 4 brains or 6 brains inside of a cube would probably be the smallest. And now that I think about that, that actually kind of makes sense in terms of the extra dimensions as well, why they are that specific number. But anyway,
I think we've chased half our audience away.
Yeah. Now we've lost the scientific people as well, because now I'm bringing pictures and mental thoughts, like mental images into it. But anyway, M theory is actually a kind of superstring theory. And there are different types of superstring theories. Like there's one that even suggests there's 26 dimensions. That's bosonic string theory. But for various reasons, people don't necessarily think that that's completely correct nowadays, because of something called tachyonic anomalies, which means that in order for the maths to work in the bosonic string theory, basically it would violate one of the Newtonian laws, which is that energy and matter cannot be created or destroyed. It's the second law of thermodynamics, I believe. It would violate that law, because a tachyonic anomaly is when there's just like a spontaneous creation of matter or energy out of nowhere, and that mathematically speaking would be the problem for bosonic superstring theory.
Well, it's funny that you mentioned laws, because in multiverses, part of the reason why scientists don't like it is the fact that if the multiverse is a thing, because like I mentioned before, electrons are in different states, they have different occurrences, and because of that, these multiverses may have different laws that they obey to. So the fact that you mentioned Newtonian law, they might be slightly, not like drastically different, but slightly different in the other universe. So that's why a lot of the scientists dislike it so much, is that if we consider, obviously, matter cannot be created or destroyed, in that universe might be slightly different. It says matter can be created but cannot be destroyed.
We can talk about that closer to the end. I'm going to make a note of that. Okay. But what is, like, because this is actually a relatively recent field of research, like the multiverse in general, regardless of which theory you fall behind, it's been popping up a lot in media nowadays. Probably the most common ones are inside of the Marvel universe, cinematic universe, but also in stuff like Rick and Morty and things like that. So, Mackie, why don't you tell me about your favorite depiction of the multiverse inside of media? Now that can be games, it can be books, it can be whatever. What's your favorite?
So you did mention the Marvel universe. So look, I grew up seeing these different universes, and I think the people who've taken the greatest advantage of it is definitely media, especially both DC and Marvel. And the first time I can recall ever seeing a multiverse or different universe was definitely DC. Um, just seeing the different heroes in a completely different situation where I still remember the episode quite fondly of where Batman goes to a different universe trying to stop a the Joker from the different universe comes to ask for help from Batman, and obviously initially Batman thinks he's evil, but only to find that in their universe all villains are good guys and all good guys are villains, and that was the first kind of like idealization of that, and that doesn't end there. It's actually such an interesting. When I obviously saw that episode, I was intrigued enough to learn part of like why is that even possible. And the DC have made the universes in such an interesting way, superposition here, guys, where all the universes are occurring but in slightly different ways. And
wait, is this DC or Marvel now?
DC, I'm sticking to DC.
Okay.
You can go to Marvel if you wish to do that, but DC, in my opinion, tackled the multiverse in a much more realistic way. The reason being is that as superposition happened, so initially it started all from a Earth prime, so a core, if you would say, and because of this slight changes where one life never occurred on this particular planet, and then obviously in another universe life did occur, and it just kind of branched out continuously and ever expand. And the way they make it out in the superposition multiverse is very cleverly done. All the alternative Earths or universes are directly linked to each other. And if you were to destroy this Earth Prime, you would intentionally destroy all the other universes, because this is Earth Prime. It's central, or the birthplace of all the other universes. And I just love that idea that because we all came, but that's also another factor of why scientists hate the multiverse, is that we're just an accident. Everything we do is not, it's all been done, and we're just accidentally lucky enough to be in certain cases we are in right now. Or maybe we're unlucky. Maybe we just missed that superpower that we would have got from COVID. Maybe we're just that a little bit unlucky. And that's it's just such a still interesting thing saying that
we're on the worst timeline.
Possibly. Maybe the people who didn't experience COVID are now having flying cars that they're now driving around. We're just unlucky, luckily, in the situation that we're in. And I just love that idea that if we were to go back to the prime Earth and say we decided to blow it up, all the other Earths would kind of, since they branched off, not necessarily branched off, but they originated from that Earth, would also be affected. I just love that depiction.
Yeah, well, one of the most helpful things about the DC, multiverse is that they've got a cool little nifty multiverse map.
Oh, 100%. That's crazy.
Which looks like something out of like a Hindi temple or something. Like it looks like, what are those like patterns that the Hindu people draw called?
You're the
well, anyway,
person, yeah?
it's like a really beautiful spiral pattern kind of affair, but it looks a lot like that. And for anyone curious, it's actually really interesting to look up. It's the DC Comics multiverse. But anyway, so that's your favorite depiction of the multiverse.
Oh, 100%. And looking at it, it's actually ties quite closely to what we think the multiverse could possibly be. And then, geez, it's just and they play around with the idea so much that I just love it, because they have so many different ideas and so many different versions, like Batman being Cave Batman, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I think probably, and I don't think you'll. What do you think is my favorite? I want to see if you can guess it.
Well, before I answer that, what is your preferred multiverse as we described before? So obviously this is not what your theorized think, but what is your preferred multiverse?
Of the theories, you mean?
Yeah, of the theories.
That's no, friend. That's the next question. We're talking media here. We're talking media here.
I don't know, because I think you would be more lean towards Rick and Morty, something of that variety. I don't know. You have to tell me. I could guess a number of ones, but I'll settle with Rick and Morty.
Okay. You are wrong, my friend.
I'm not surprised. I thought you would have been able to guess mine.
Well, I would have thought Marvel. I will,
Oh,
and
but
then I
you're
also
wrong
would have
there.
gotten it wrong.
You're wrong.
But my favorite depiction is actually from the one episode of Futurama where Professor Farnsworth made boxes that contained different universes inside the multiverse of themselves. That was just such a fun episode where they're like jumping in and out of boxes. I just thought it was a load of fun. Yeah, but that's my favorite. But let's go on to the next question since you are so keen to ask about it. And that is, how do we think the multiverse is? Or which theory do we think is correct? Or do we have our own way of thinking about it? My answer to that is that I'm leaning more towards okay, I don't think any of them are true. I do, but the specific number of 10 dimensions in string theory is what I actually believe myself. I think that, okay, let's just leave that as a little bit of a nugget for everybody to be
A
in
schnugnut.
suspense about, and yeah, a shugnet for everyone to be in suspense about, as Mackie tells us what he believes is, because um, my one is going to get a bit way out there, and I don't want to completely derail the conversation about about this question just yet. So I think you should first give your answer before we talk about what I think.
Okay, just because my ones are generally concise to the point, eh?
So my answer is basically I don't believe that any of those theories that we talked about earlier is correct.
I am also on a similar path. Look, I don't. It, guys, there's so many theories out there that you could throw a stick in the wind and then it will land on a theory. It's really at this point in juncture
I'm so,
you could.
I'm sorry, dude. I've never heard that kind of
I'm making
phrasing
my own
before.
things, okay?
Throw a stick in the
smart.
wind.
Yeah, I decide to. What you want to say? You pee in the wind, and then your pee will land somewhere. You can
No,
say whatever you wish.
I'm sorry, dude. That is an awesome like mental image. But carry on. A stick in the wind.
Yeah, it flies back in your face. Ow!
Oh my god!
But yeah, basically,
Uh,
so look, there's so many theories, and I from those theories, I do kind of work off my own, and it comes back to dark matter. So I understand to a degree. I wouldn't say I fully understand all the different dimensions, and I definitely think that's a factor, and probably ties in why I say dark matter is part of it. Is basically we always consider gravity as a pull rather than a push, but from a lot of scientific point of views and a lot of studies coming out lately, we see dark energy being that kind of opposition to that theory of gravity is always a pull. And I feel that that's the one key that we might be missing. And I like that. And why I think that's the one key, because I like the idea that we can almost harness gravity to kind of do the opposite of what we know it is as a always constant. And because of that, I think the multiverse is not necessarily of a different plane of existence. Why I say that is that the universe is consistently and always ever expanding. We understood it from a point of view. So starting from the beginning, we thought that the Earth was the center of the universe. Then we discovered that the sun was the center of the universe. Then we discovered that not even the sun is the center of the universe, because we're not the center of the universe. Our galaxy is not the only universe. Then our
But at
universe,
the center of our galaxy is a supermassive black hole.
100%. So we're consistently working from inward outwards. So we consistently when we say universe, we consider everything, but that's not the case. So when we first did a test and analysis of is the universe expanding, our initial test showed that the universe is expanding but is slowing down. So it was reaching a point of coming to the end. But then a few scientific articles from PhD students studied it, and they saw their numbers were not showing it slowing down; it was speeding up. So now, how is it speeding up? And that's where dark energy or dark matter comes into the question. Is that perhaps dark energy is repelling or pushing rather than pulling? And what to kind of tie up everything I want to say in a nice look.
The easy way that I remember how dark energy and dark matter relate to each other is that dark matter is the stuff that keeps things inside of the universe inside, or like keeps them in place in a way. Like it's because of dark matter that um, galaxies form the shape of disks and spirals that as we know them. But then, so that like keeps things together. But what dark energy is doing is it's trying to make things go further apart.
Exactly.
Now, whether it's pulling from some outside kind of vacuum or pushing from, I don't know, like a quantum level, everything apart, we don't know. But it's safe to say that it makes everything want to go away from each other. So matter makes it go together, whereas the dark energy makes it go apart. Just easy way to remember it.
I appreciate that. I'm sure the audience does as well. But having those two forces coming into there, I believe that the multiverse is part of our universe. So what I'm saying is that at the end of the universe, it is, so if we were to travel in a straight line to just consistently able to travel at much faster than light speed, and just and we would reach the end of our universe. But on the other side of that universe is another universe of slight differences. So we basically all part of the central plane. It's just that we're so far apart from each other that we can hardly interact with each other. So it's a weird way to think of it. So picture our universe as a block. And if we're able to kind of view our entire universe as a central map or a square map, and we were able to go all the way to the edge of the universe. Now, unlike Pac-Man, I don't think we would appear on the other side and then be able to come back to where we started. I believe that we would continue, but now, unlike Pac-Man, we would appear in the other universe's universe. If that makes sense.
Yeah. So you're suggesting that tell me if I'm wrong here. Are you suggesting that there's like a membrane around our universe? Not an actual membrane, but like just a mental one now, so that we can separate our universe from another one. There's like this membrane around our universe, and just on the other side of that membrane is the other universe.
Yeah.
So then my question for you is, do you think they're touching?
I do. I think they're both doing what they do, and then they are, because it's continuously expanding, because the universe, as far as we know it, is limitless. And
yeah,
I would not be surprised if there's a galaxy, because that's also part of the kind of multiverse there, where there's a galaxy identical to ours, because our universe is infinite as far as we know. I would not be surprised if there's a galaxy exactly the same as ours, and myself and Jotun, slightly different apparel, are having this exact same discussion. Because there could be a galaxy exact duplicate of ours, just slight difference. Maybe their sun is green and ours is just we consider yellow, but it's actually white.
No,
But they have a green
it's
sun.
it's no, it's one where I have a moustache, and
Yeah,
it's the typical evil villain moustache.
and
And then
he's
there's
Mexican, and
yet a
and I you're
and then
Mexican.
there's a third universe where I have the exact same moustache, but it's not a villain moustache; it's a hero moustache, because culture turned out to be a bit different.
So, in other words, what I'm saying is that the universe is already part of our universe. So, yes,
Yeah,
it's still multiverse, but because our universe is continuously growing, their universe is kind of already incorporated with ours. And it's kind of two ways of thinking of it, because I do think that if we were to reach the end of the galaxy, we would go over to a different universe. But at the same time, I'm also kind of pulled towards the other one where our world is just duplicated, because the the number of possibilities is infinite, and because of there can only be so many possibilities, I think that our universe might even incorporate multiples of us in different galaxies, just super duper far away from us. It's now you're making my brain
that's
fuzz.
that's really that's really interesting, because the way that it sounds to me, I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to first say the way it sounds to me, and then also I'm going to expand on your idea in a way that might blow your mind as well. Um, the first is that it sounds to me as if your idea of the multiverse actually incorporates the wrong interpretation of the word dimension, because if those if the other universe is inside of our universe, then that just means that in a way we can't perceive that universe because it's not inside of the localized space time as we
Mm,
know it. It's not in our brain, but that other brain in a way exists right next to us,
mm,
or
just super far
or
away.
or else no, not even that. I mean, like, even superimposed upon us. So that would be the idea of superpositioning, um, where it can be both at the same time within our own space time, um, and not necessarily even on a distant part inside of our own universe. It's like right here with you. It's just that because it's on its own brain, you can't perceive it. But then you're also suggesting that if we go to the end of our universe, then we can. It's like if you were to go up along one side of a piece of paper, and you get to the edge of the paper,
Hmm.
but you in your head all you're thinking is, I need to be moving further along this piece of paper. Eventually, you would go over the lip of the edge of the paper and come out on the other side. So that's like just sorry, I'm going to mix a lot of analogies here, but that's how it sounds to me.
No, exactly. And before you go on, think of the Futurama episode. Remember the episode where they have a time machine that could only go forward? What happens when they get to the end of time? The universe starts up again. Exactly the exact same things. The only difference
So then
when
it reflects.
it reflects, it basically does that. But it's a different universe technically, because what they've done is that they've traveled to the end of their universe because their universe died and a new universe was reborn. And but remember what happens at the funny bit at the very end is that to kind of kill the already existing persons there, the universe was a few inches higher than that universe. Remember how the time machine crushed the existing Fry, the Doctor, and Bender because their time machine
Yeah,
fell on them because their universe was slightly higher, and that's what I'm saying. It's basically a good way to kind of compare it.
interesting. Okay, so to expand on your idea, instead of thinking of the universe as a box, then that you can reach the end of, if you think of it in terms of a sphere, then if you go in one direction inside of the sphere of the universe and you reach the end of it, um, I would think the most inclusive way of positing your conception of the multiverse is that when you reach the end of it, you do get to a different multiverse. But if now on that sphere you were to take a pinprick, that is your point of ingress into the next universe, and that pinprick, let's say gateway, goes to one other universe. But then if you were to move that pinprick to a slightly different location on the sphere of our universe, you would go to another universe, but it would be a completely different universe from the one you were traveling to from the previous pinprick. And if you think about it, there's an infinite amount of pinpricks that you could have on the edge of our universe, that would lead to different universes. Um, and but that would then lead to the problem of those other universes overlapping with each other, which I would argue would suggest that there would at least need to be three extra dimensions of space time, um, because otherwise those ones would overlap in each other, and that would be too much energy inside of it or something like that. Let's
I
just say
disagree.
weird things would happen. No, I'm just saying, like,
No. I'm hearing you, but
that to me would suggest that you would need at least three extra dimensions. But tell me, how do the extra dimensions fit into your conception of the multiverse? Briefly, because we still want to get to my idea as well.
oh no, look, I don't want to expand too much because I definitely want to hear your idea. I was agreeing with everything you were saying before, but I don't think the extra dimensions come into the factor is what I'm basically saying with mine. Reason being is that I do definitely think that there is extra dimensions. I'm not disagreeing about that. I definitely think there are higher dimensions, but I don't think they
Yeah.
come into the factor of the multiverse. What I'm saying is that because the universe is ever expanding, so think of that sphere.
Yeah.
Everything was right there, but now that sphere is growing. So that surface area is growing. So that sphere is ever continuously growing. As that sphere continuously grow, you're getting more area to put to the pricks. Now I
And
agree with you.
that's easily explained by why, or that would explain why there would in fact be more and more universes being created inside of the universe as well.
Mm,
Because as that, let's call it a balloon now, no longer a sphere. As
gotcha.
that balloon expands, the volume and the surface area of the membrane itself of the balloon expands. And
Yes.
because of that, more universes are being created all the time based off of choices that people make and
Well,
different
I don't
outcomes
even think
happening.
by choices. I don't even think by choices because what I'm saying is that our choices don't matter. Our choices don't make the multi universe because they're
Oh,
gonna they're gonna
okay,
be they're gonna
interesting.
be they're gonna be made irrespective of what we do. They're just slightly different to what we do. So unlike superposition where our actions have an influence, I'm saying that that's us thinking ourselves as the center of the universe again. Guys, we're not doing the whole thing of that I'm the hero of our life story here. Like when you put music in your ears, you think, hey, I'm that main character of the story. Nuh-uh. Get out of your mind there, guys. The universe does not revolve around you. Neither does the multiverses. Because
Okay.
I'm saying that the universes are being created as we speak, irrespective of our decisions. There's just coincidentally happening that I am in one universe a president and another universe a hobo. Just because it just happens.
I have a question that has nothing to do with our topic, but only a little bit. Are you a determinist? Like, do you believe in free will?
Yeah, I believe in free will.
The argument that you're making sounds very it sounds like hard determinism to me.
No, well look, the thing is I believe in free will, but what I'm saying is that I don't believe that our actions are the cause for the universe's creation.
Oh, okay. Now I'm following you.
Because if we were to believe that our actions are the causes of the creation of said universes, then we have no free will in my opinion. Because technically, we've done it already in another universe. It's just that in this particular universe, I've decided to do this. But in the other universe, I have done it already. So in both cases, I have no choice. I've done it already. I'm just in the universe where I am perceiving to have done said way, where I don't agree with that. I agree with where our actions have no influence on the other universes, that they just exist because they exist. They have free will. They can do whatever they wish. Me buying a hamburger does not necessarily mean that me buying a pizza is linked. We're just two entities living, doing our own thing.
Okay, I understand what you're saying. I disagree, but that is a fascinating rationalization. Well, like a fascinating way of thinking about it. So everyone, what Mackie is arguing is that he thinks there would be no free will in a universe where our choices create universes in the multiverse, because as a premise for any multiverse, it suggests that there are so many different ways in which a universe inside of the multiverse can come about because of the choices, that it's inevitable that you will make that choice. And because it's inevitable, Mackie thinks that that would mean that there would be no free will.
Slightly wrong in that explanation. So people of the internet, as Jotun has explained, all I'm saying is that when, as scientists dislike the idea of multiverses, that if you have the reason why they state is that you have no free will is that you've done it. So you making the decision that should I do this or should I not do this, you've done it. You've done it in both situations where you've done it and not done it. So in both situations, it's happened. You're just in a version of where you're perceived of doing a certain thing. So if I were to decide to buy a lotto ticket, I look at the numbers and I say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But there's also those other numbers. I've done it already. But there's just that universe, that decision has already been made for me. I'm just in the one particular universe where I decided 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's just one of those universes. And that's why I agree with the scientist. I dislike that, because that means that anything I do is technically I've done it in all the other ways anyways. So like the slit theory, even though there's one particle, it goes through both slits at the same time. So it doesn't go to one to the other side. So I don't get to make my decisions. I don't get to make my own influences.
That is what I was basically what I was saying as well. For your reasoning is that because of the infinite amount, it is inevitable that you would have that outcome exists. And so you're saying that if free will is the thing that creates the other universes, then it's because of the fact that it's inevitable, because like somewhere out there you will have made that choice.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. That's fascinating. Like I would literally come to the opposite conclusion if our choices create the multiverse. But so yeah, that's fascinating. Like I mean, that's my only comment. But now let me tell you guys about what I think the multiverse is.
Okay,
right?
guys, we're out of time. Okay, so don't forget this. Joking.
Jeez, I would be so peeved. Okay, so I agree with you that the way that we think about the multiverse is boxed in by the scientific theories, but in a different way. I don't agree that the other dimensions, I do believe that there are extra dimensions. I just don't believe that there are extra dimensions of space. That's what I think is wrong. I think that space is the only way that we can think of the extra dimensions, but as an analogy, because we have 3 dimensions of space, which are the X, Y, and Z axis. But we're subject to the X axis of time. And so for me, logically speaking, the way that we would go forward and backward in time is if, like with a 2D piece of paper and 2 dimensions of space, you would need to be able to move along, or you would need to be subject to the y-axis of time, which would mean that you are able to influence the x-axis of time freely. And then, so that's the first extra dimension. It's the y-axis of time. And then I would say that the second extra dimension would be the z-axis of time. And if you are subject to the z-axis of time, then you would be able to move on the y and x-axis of time. But then you wouldn't have any control of the z-axis. You would be subject to it. And I think that if you are able to control the 3 dimensions of time, then you would be able to shift. If you think of our universe as a bubble, if you were able to have influence over all 3 dimensions of time, then you would be able to shift to a different bubble inside this liquid that contains the multiverse. But then the question arises, if you are able to manipulate the 3 dimensions of time, then there must be some new dimension that you are subject of. And I would agree. And so I don't know exactly what that new kind of dimension would be. Although there is something inside of the superstring theory, which is an exception, which might be that. But logically speaking, using that same analogy, you could say that there would be 3 dimensions of that other type of dimension, which would be its X, Y, and Z. And then just because of the rule of 3s, which is more like a superstition or whatever, I think that that's enough. We don't need to have more dimensions than that per se. We've got the 3 of space, we've got the 3 of time, and we've got the 3 of the other type of dimension, which makes 9 dimensions in total. And then I would say that in order to manipulate those 3, which is, there are 3 dimensions inside of each, or there are 3 dimensions inside each of the types of dimensions. That's space, time, and whatever the other one is. And logically speaking, there must be something that, let's say the fluid that contains the bubbles, that would need to exist, even though whatever can manipulate space, time, and that other type of dimension might be subject to that. I believe that that is the kind of being that God is. Like, that is our Christian God. He's able to manipulate space and time and that other type of dimension. And either way, that way that I conceive of the multiverse now requires 10 dimensions. What do you think of that? Oh, yeah. Before I ask you what you think of that, Mackie, one of the problems with some of the extra dimensions inside of the scientific theories is that they can't explain gravity. And gravity, even inside of brain theories of the multiverse, is the one thing that can penetrate through the 4 dimensions that we know. So maybe, and this is just an idea, maybe we have 3 dimensions of space, we have 3 dimensions of time, and 3 dimensions of gravity as well. And it just so happens that God is the only one that can manipulate all 3 of those types of dimensions and the multiverse as a whole. So what do you think of that?
I will say that your way of thinking would get a scientist a heart attack. Because we're both on the same page here that we both think that gravity is a factor to be included. Just to consider time, gravity, space can possibly be there, but time and gravity to have not one but 3 dimensions would literally blow everyone's mind from here to Kingdom Come. Because I was trying to comprehend that, like, my brain was like working overtime and overdrive here, trying to comprehend the fact that if time has 3 dimensions, does that mean forward? Okay, so we viewed an XY. No, we viewed it along the X line. But there's a Y and a Z axis. Oh my gosh, that is gonna blow everyone's mind. But I don't deny it.
But that's, think about it now. That is the only way that you could time travel.
How do you even
we're
think
getting to
about
time travel now?
But how do you get into 3 dimensions here? Because we view time as a straight line, and I agree with you. Time may most likely does have extra dimensions to it. But if we now conclude that time has now is not just an X axis, but a Y and a Z axis, what does Y comprehend? Like, I hear what you hear.
We can't conceive of it, but that's why the only analogy that we can use to try to conceive of it is the dimensions of space as we know it. And from the dimensions of space, if you had only an x-axis, that would literally be a dot on the piece of paper. And it doesn't matter where on the line of the x-axis that dot is. The dot is everything. You can't control jack shit as just being a being on the x-axis of space. But if you were a being that was on the y-axis, then that would mean that you can have free will on the x-axis of time, because now that's just the playing field. This is just in terms of like 2D space now. And then if you are able to go both up and down, that's the X. Go left and right and up and down, then that means that you are a 3-dimensional being, because now you are someone who is subject to the dimension of Z. But you can't control your Z. You're only flowing in one direction of Z. But you can freely move on X and Y. But now this is what we are. We are 4th-dimensional beings, where we can manipulate all 3 dimensions of space, but not time. And so a question I've asked myself in the past is, but then how can we move forward and backward in time? And then my logical way of thinking about it was that we would need to be subject to the y-axis of time. And then we could go forward and backward of time, because going forward and backward is the x-axis of time. But then using the 3 dimensions of space as an analogy, you can just expand like that, and that's how you become higher dimensional beings. Or that's what they would be, like in my mind.
No, well, intentionally, I think you are picking up some real theoretical straws. I wish I could be smoking what you're smoking. No, but I do think that there are some truth in what you're saying. I'm just trying to, maybe because I'm still such a pleb in the mind of the theory of everything. But I do agree that extra dimensions is possible. But all I'm saying is that, okay, so out of interest, if you described the theory, what would a alternative universe be? So say now you got all these extra dimensions. Would you say that the universes are coexisting like we are? It's just that they're at different points in time, space, and everything? or are there? Oh, so okay, one more thing. Does my action influence other people's actions? So does my mere presence not at all? So we both in agreement on that front. We just have different ideas of that. You're saying that we're already all coexistent. Is your multiverse expanding, or is it a set number? Because obviously now I'm trying to think here is that now that you included time in 3 dimensions, obviously I can only conceive time in a single dimension. Does that mean that you're... Jeez, what does that mean? So many questions. I don't even know what to ask there, because you have 2 extra dimensions where time can now do something. But at the same time, we have no idea what to do.
No, I understand. Like, that is the limit of how far my conceptualization of the multiverse goes. Because there are some very difficult questions that come after that.
There's like all those, that whole thing is like something I would have to force down my throat to say. Wow. But I like it. I love it. It's such an interesting way to think of things.
So let me throw you some questions now, based on my thing that I don't even want you to answer, but I want it to
Rhetorical
be something
question,
that you and other people think about. Rhetorical questions. No, not rhetorical questions, but let's call it brain busting questions. Okay, so having extra dimensions of time literally means that I'm saying there are extra dimensions of causality. So what would like horizontal causality or lateral causality look like? What does that even mean? And then also, what would be like a different dimension of gravity? Would that mean that the things are being pushed away? Is dark matter just like reverse gravity? And then what would the lateral, like sideways or depth way of gravity be?
I like how you add in all these extra dimensions into something that doesn't have those dimensions. Like, I understand that the possibility is there, but it's a possibility of me saying the same thing as saying, what if I grow a 3rd arm in my body? It's equivalent way of saying that's me from a scientific point of view of logical thinking, saying that if we now consider depth and gravity, we must also consider the level of sound from gravity, the level of heat produced from gravity, and it's dimensions that is so out there that it's definitely possible, but it's also at the same time it's something that only the pure scientists and mathematicians can possibly even comprehend. The fact that the gravity can have a depth.
Maths people, get on that. Get on that, maths people. Maths people need to get on that.
Oh my gosh. This has been an interesting episode.
So basically, my biggest gripe with the other types of multiversal theories is just that they assume that because we can't affect time now, we can't go backwards in time, they assume that the extra dimensions must be dimensions of space. Whereas I'm saying, no, my friend. It's not extra
Time is
dimensions
also
of
a factor.
space. Exactly. We have extra dimensions of time. That's all I'm saying. And then
I agree.
I just think like, well, we have no bloody clue what an extra dimension of time is. So the only analogy we can use is how we understand the dimensions of space to be. And that's how my theory comes about. Well, anyway, everybody, that was today's episode of Ramble Shamble. Whose theory of the multiverse do you think is correct? And how do you think of the multiverse? Now, this is a very broad topic, so it might not be helpful to tell us completely what your theory of the multiverse is. But you know what? I don't care. This is super fascinating. You guys just like write me a whole paragraph in the the comments. I will read it. I'm that type
He
of
won't
person.
read it. Don't lie.
I I'm that type of person.
Prove
but
me wrong,
just-
audience. Write them
just-
paragraphs
just-
and then tell them.
just but have a heart though, guys. Like, be brief about what you think the multiverse is like. And yeah, let us know who had the better concept of the multiverse, and what do you think? You can tell us in the YouTube comments, but there are also some other ways in which you can show your love for the podcast. Mackie, where can they do that?
This is the first time that we haven't put it at the beginning or midsection of the episode. What's going to happen? It's almost as good. It's like something we have to do for like superstition, or the episodes won't work like a previous episode, like just the last episode or to this one. But yes, guys, there's other channels that we post to. We post to Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Rumble. Rumble's been a bit lacking lately, but we will post on Rumble eventually. YouTube, as Jotun has so graciously shared with us. Our main way to communicate to us is Discord, as you might have heard from our previous episodes. And how do you find our Discord? It's in a link in the descriptions. You also can type Ramble Shamble on your fancy whatever browser you decide to, probably hopefully not Chrome. But from there, you'll find it on Discord, and that will lead us straight to us, where you can chat to us, directly speak with us, play games with us, mention or be part of our podcast episodes. We love those kind of things, and like Jotun said, is if you send messages to us, we will greatly respond to them. We might not respond to them at the exact time, because we're all people of different times. We sleep, we eat, we enjoy, we gym, we exercise, we do a number of different things. And that's what we want to do as a community, is that we want to grow this community. Being like you want to play a game with someone, you message the community. You like doing something like chatting about the theories of the multiverse and the concepts of how to break the second dimension of time. Baby steps, guys. Yeah, third dimension is something far away. We will work the second dimension until we get to that third dimension.
Yeah.
But it's something that helps us grow in our minds and basically becomes as a community. And again, guys, if you like this episode, there's the shorter ones where obviously this has been a bit of a longer episode than our normal kind of count. We try to keep it within an hour, but the shorter episodes are shrapnel episodes. And I'm sure Jotun will describe that. But before he gets there, if you guys did enjoy this, we post regularly on every Thursday, and you can go listen to another podcast. Maybe there's a different topic that also interests you. One that ties very closely to this one is the first one, where Jotun describes how he would leave behind his people and just go gain the benefits of his new home and universe, and basically become like a slime and possess the existing Jotun. But there's another one where we describe space and time. There's another one where we describe future, and you'll see a lot of these things kind of tied together because topics are limitless. We can go back to this topic, and I'm sure that we'll have another funny enough hour and a half where we'll just chat about what we think and how we discovered that there's not 3 dimensions of time, there's a 4th dimension that we have never discovered before, and we've discovered on this very podcast. But those things is why your comments are very handy and helpful to us, and that comes from our Ramble Shamble. Jotun?
Yeah. So from the comments that you guys tell us about the questions that we ask, or just general not general conversations, but the comments inside of Discord and from the YouTube that we find to be the most interesting or the most upvoted by you guys, depending on which we feel is better, then we will take that response to one of the questions that we asked at the end of this episode, and we will choose that as our favorite to talk about in a smaller bonus episode linked to this one, part of a separate playlist called Ramble Shrapnel, because it's a bit or a piece of the main episode. But that's it, everybody. Thank you for joining us today as we just rambled along about this topic of space, time, and the multiverse. And we will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.